A little birdie told me that the Wimbledon is on at the moment, so I thought it could be fun to go back to earlier this year when my friend and I were lucky enough to go to the Australian Open, and I thrift flipped 2 dresses for my friend and I to go matching in. And here's the process of how I brought it to life. I absolutely love going to an event and just leaning into the theme and going all out and dressing up. Whether it's a concert, a sporting event, whatever. Take me there and I'll just make that my whole personality. And that's exactly what we did for the Australian Open. Hope you enjoy the video. Now I have these 2 thrifted, they're kind of like coats slash dresses. I was drawn to them because of that chic tailored style, and I knew that I could evolve it and make it maybe a bit more casual or fun. Finally, when I realized I was going to the tennis, I started to brainstorm how I could create some vintage inspired courtside outfits, and I just always have adored the drop waist pleated details and then it looking a bit like a suit or something more elevated on the top half, and that's where these come into play. The white one just looks like a doctor's coat. Personally, I think it's very unflattering, but I loved all the other details about it and I knew the right idea would come along. I'm thinking this should be a straightforward process, and I'll share how I take it up to the length that I want it and then also create that pleated section. I'm just going to do one thing at a time, try it on, see what we're liking, see what we're not, and then keep going from there. I'll share the steps as best as possible if you would like to recreate something like this. You could keep an eye out for similar things like this, or you could create something from scratch and then use this as inspiration for the bottom detail, or you can just follow along the journey of thrift flipping these and then seeing how we style it in Melbourne. Let's get into it. Rightio, before we jump into the sewing part of this project, I just want to take a quick moment to say thank you to the sponsor of today's video, which is Eco Susie. I've been using their beautiful and versatile range of bags through all the varying situations of life lately and absolutely loving them. From carrying all my work essentials from days in the studio to final styling touches on cute outfits, and even helping pack everything I need for beauty and self-care on my recent travels. And don't be fooled by just their beauty, there is much more than meets the eye. You'll definitely be impressed by the level of smart storage. For my studio bag, there is a dedicated laptop slip, easy to reach areas on the outside of the bag so I can put my essentials in there, as well as a variety of encased areas within the bag. Again, within the beauty bag, there's the main compartment, which you can separate your products within the internal compartments. I also really appreciate that there are adjustable aspects of each of the bags, like the choice to add the extended strap on my studio bag, as well as tailoring the strap length on my handbag. It's definitely handy having these thoughtful and adjustable details so that the bags can adapt to your lifestyle over the coming years. So not only does Eco Susie offer timeless designs, their ranges come in a large selection of colors and differing materials and finishes to suit your lifestyle. Everybody has their preferences for durability and sustainability when it comes to leather and alternative options, and I love that Eco Susie offers both, so you can pick something that aligns with your ethos and your aesthetic. Thanks again Eco Susie for sponsoring my channel and making this video possible, and as a little thanks for you guys for sitting through this, there's a little sneaky discount code in the description box and the link to check out more if you like what you've seen. Okay, time to jump back into bringing these garments to life. I'm going to start on the white one because if I didn't make any mistakes, it's easier to get this matching white linen-y material. My goal right now is to find the point that I'm going to cut this at, and that is then where the pleat is going to begin. All of my references, they kind of start at the widest point of the hip, which you could have it up here or you could have it a little bit lower depending how drop waist you want it. I'm torn. I think I'm going to cut it lower just because it'll be harder to add it on if I accidentally cut it too high. So if I go around there, keeping in mind this is just the final location where I want it to be, so I do need to consider seam lengths, but I'll talk about that in a sec. The way I'm going to be creating the pleated sections, I wouldn't be able to do it with just one layer, so normally like a regular button-up shirt that you cut the bottom off might not be enough. You'd have to get a whole bunch of extra material, which could be fun. You could have a contrasting detail and play into that, but I'm aiming to have all the same material, so the benefit of this being longer means that I'm going to cut first layer and then the second layer. They'll be equal heights, and then I'll join it together to create one long strip, and that's going to allow me the extra length to create the pleats. I mean, that's the dream and the idea anyway. We'll see how we go. So if you are thrifting something, it might be handy to figure out where you want the drop waist, and if you're then going to have enough height to create the 2 layers and get it to the final length that you want. Obviously I bought this without knowing, but for a general rule, below the knee seems to be enough for me to be able to do that. I'm going to button these up so it's nice and even. I love all the little vintage buttons on these as well. Like that would just add to the whole look. If I fold the bottom up to that point where I'll be cutting, maybe just a little bit further to consider the seam allowance that's going to be lost, that is the length of the final dress at its potential longest, so I could always take it up if I want to make it shorter. Let me just measure from that shoulder area down to the bottom, and I'm going to see roughly where that is on me. It's so hard knowing how mini you want something. Like mini always looks cute, but it's always so risky just going mini straight away. Like I'd rather make it a little bit longer. I can always take it up if need be. Yeah, that's good. Nothing worse than accidentally cutting it and it being too short on the bum area. So where I put that pin, I'm going to add 1 centimeter or about roughly under ½ inch to the length, and that should allow for the seam allowance. And then I'm going to cut a straight line across there. I'm going to do the front and the back layer all at the same time, and then I'm going to try it on and scare myself because it's going to be super mini. I'm going to get the mic up nice and close for some cutting ASMR. This is going to be a mildly scary and confusing try on. If need be, I could add an extra layer in here trying to match this material color, or you could play around again with like that vintage style where they have those cool contrasting color strips. I did think about that, and I guess I can add on later a green strip or a red strip or something fun. It's essentially a long top at the moment. This is the plan, it's how it's meant to be. Because this is an old vintage style dress, top, coat, whatever they are, they have those really extra long hems. So if need be, in this moment, if I feel like it's going to be too short, I can unpick that, and that's going to give me like another 2 inches, 5 centimeters, whatever that measurement is. Could be perfect, could be mini. Okay, I feel like that's perfect. I think I'm going to unpick that hemmed area and just have it there just in case for extra seam allowance and mistakes and things like that. I feel like I could walk around in this and my bum wouldn't hang out. I mean, we can also wear little like black shorts underneath it if need be. I'm just going to unpick all this bottom hem area, and then I'll cut it right down the middle so it's equal heights. You know, I find so lovely is when you find something handmade. All the edges on the insides are very like frayed and just zigzag stitch, which that definitely looks handmade, like something I would do. I've just realized that there's not a label on there. So someone's probably handmade this. Some people are like, and now you're tearing it apart. No, it got handed into an op shop, and now I'm giving it a new life, and it's going to be loved again. And I'm going to add my own handmade mark onto it. I love that. Someone and I are handmade soul sisters. Oh my god, I'm going to cry. That's so cute. I wonder if she ever went to the Australian Open. Definitely her name was Bev. Bev, the little darling, making her own dresses. I finished unpicking the bottom hem and the side edges, flattened it all out, folded it in half height ways so that I am stacking the 2 heights, cut that down the center, and then I've got these 2 pieces. Now because we've cut it, the existing seams might come undone, so I'm just gonna go, I guess, back stitch or go over the beginning, because that will just be annoying if that comes undone later. Once I finish cleaning up these seams and securing them, I'm going to lay the 2 pieces good sides facing and then sew down one side, and that's going to be, I guess, like the center back. I'll leave the other side open, and those will each be the center fronts. So this is now all one long layer. Could be too much, that's fine. I can always just chop off what I don't want to use. But I think it'd be cool having more there. Have I ever done anything like this before? No. I'm just gonna figure it out as we go. If for some reason the dress slash top or whatever you're working with is too oversized and you want it to be a bit more fitted, this could be a good time to take it in on the sides. I'm happy with how this is fitting, so I'm gonna keep it as is. And I'm gonna measure the whole raw edge that to be cut at the bottom. 44 inches is my final length that I need to get it down to. I'm going to double fold the 2 short raw end edges. So I'll do a double fold of about ½ inch or 1 centimeter each, just so they're all clean and ready to go. So then when we line it up, we're leaving it as is. And I'm also going to pick one side to be my bottom edge, and I'll do the same as well and do a double fold. And that means once I've got those edges all ready, I can then start attaching it on. We are back to where we were before, and that is me trying to get this down to 44 inches so I can add it onto the dress. Lay out the long panel, which is all hemmed down the short edges and the bottom section, and measure 42 and 44. 44. So I have 86 inches all up of this bottom tier material. I want to add that onto a garment which is 44 inches long at the bottom where I'll be attaching it. So I'm going to minus 44 inches. That equals 42 inches. I want each of these folds to be about 2 inches. So dividing that extra measurement by 2 inches is helping me figure out how many 2-inch pleats I can fit within that extra measurement, because if I divided the entire length by 2, we're not considering leaving it as 44. In my head it makes sense, but we'll see how it works out. So I've got 21. So then I go back to my final measurement that I want it to be, which is 44, and I'm going to take that 21 because it's telling me I can fit 21 pleats in here, and divide 44 by 21 equals 2.09. So the gap between each of my pleats should be 2.09 inches. I'm just going to round it down to 2 inches, and I'm going to start from one side to my back, and then at the back area I can figure out my adjustments. So how would I explain that in a simplified way? So you find the final measurement of the top area that you're adding this onto, you find the full length of the additional area that you're adding on, you then subtract the top amount from this entire length, and that should tell us how much extra we have, and then you divide that by how wide you would like your pleats to be. Mine were 2 inches. So I divided that by 2. So then we grab that number that we found, which is telling us how many pleats, and we grab the number of the top that we're adding it onto, and we divide that by the number that we just found, which is the pleat amount. And that should tell us the gap between each of the pleats. So the 2 inches is how wide we want the pleats. This final calculation is helping us figure out how much we need to measure between the gaps. The higher measurement of your pleats, probably the higher size of your gap as well. Okay. Seems to add up. So what this looks like on the actual fabric panel that we'll be pleating is staggering these two measurements along the whole raw edge. Start with the gap measurement, which for me was 2.09 inches, and pop a mark there. Then the second mark will be the pleat measurement, which for me was 2 inches along. And so I don't get confused by the difference of these gaps, I added an extra mark halfway between the pleat measurement, and this will also come in handy down the track to help indicate the folded edge, and also just help remind me where I'm at with measuring. To keep things even, I started from the outer edges and worked my way into the center. So if need be, adjustments can be made to the center back. Once I filled out the continued alternating measurement marks, it's then time to create the fold of the pleat. You essentially grab the part of the material where one of the pleated edge marks are and move it over to sit on top of the opposite marked edge, and then create a fold where those center marks are. Pin or clip them in place, and then continue this process of folding the pleated edges and leaving the measured out gaps between them until the whole fabric is ready to be added on. I also enjoy the look of the pleats all being folded towards the center back. So this means that when you look at the garment from the front, they'll be mirrored on each side and the folded edges are pointing towards the back. I adjusted the back area and I just remeasured it, and it equals 44 inches. Now I'm going to jump on the sewing machine and sew a single line across this top area, trying to stick probably like 1/2 centimeter or 1/4 inch roughly from that edge. And I think just to cover myself, I'm not going to sew the first and the last one in place, just so if for some reason when I go to pin it in place, if it's not sitting perfectly, I can make any adjustments. It'll literally be minor amounts because I've measured it and it equals 44, but sometimes when you're measuring a curve, it can just be slightly off. Plus it's sitting quite flat, whereas when you go to sew it on, you can stretch it out a little bit. Not going to sew the first one, pulling the pin out of the second one, making sure it's sitting all nice and flat. Keeping it folded. I'll sew as close as I can to the edge. Just by sewing this one line, it's just going to help keep it all in place, so when we do go to add it onto the top section, we're not having to worry about this staying in place and aligning with the top, helping our future selves by making less work in one go. Got my little mini iron and my ironing pad. If you follow this channel, you know that we're a non-ironing board family. Not for any reason, just can't be bothered having a big ironing board out somewhere. It's a phobia I'm working on. I had that crease down the bottom, so I'm trying to flatten that out. This has probably been creased for 30 years since Bev made it. And then I'm also just continuing the fold of each pleat. So if it's that 1 inch fold up there, it's a continuation of 1 inch down there. I think this kind of bows out a little bit, so I'm not offended if it's not perfect. Let the fabric go where it wants to. If you are a type A, you need everything to be perfectly planned, then you can definitely go around and measure or pin or perfectly align where the base of this pleat should go, but I'm just going off the vibes. If this wants to go down there, that's where it's going. It's already giving pleats. We officially have the top area and the pleated section. I'm gonna lie the top with the good sides facing up, getting this raw edge all laid out. And then I'm gonna grab this panel, flip it so it's good sides facing down, and then align those raw edges. And we're gonna pray that it all matches and nothing needs any changing. Still got the pin in that first pleat on the first and the last pleat. Stretch it out. And we've got so much of this pleated area compared to this. You got a bijoke, and this is where measuring curves always gets me. I'm like, this said it was 44 and apparently it's way more. That rhymed. I'm gonna pin from each edge into the middle. There is already a center seam in the back, so maybe I can just take it in from there again. Another exciting journey of making something. It's always the final step, isn't it? So I've pinned all the way to here, and now I've got this extra amount here. Obviously I kept the first and the last pleat undone because I thought I could just make a minor adjustment there, but this is like a good couple of inches. So I think I'm just gonna leave the front pleats as is, and instead I'm almost just gonna keep these facing good sides and find a point where I can create a new seam down there. And then I might make it a little bit looser than need be, and then I can add one final pleat along that center area. Okay, I'm gonna unpick this pleat and unpick this pleat. And then I'm gonna keep it all pinned on there and just sew down here. Where I'd want it to meet is there. So if I sew a new line about an inch from there, that means that can be the final pleat in the center. We're genuinely so close to this being done. So this is gonna be the new area that I'm sewing down. That's the pin. I'll just continue down from there. I've actually got the iron fold that I'm gonna follow, and that will be my straight line. I've just moved all the top area out of the way and the extra panel. So then all I'm focusing on is the extra panel, good sides facing, and fold it along that area. And then I'll just chop off that excess and do a zigzag stitch. Double check that's sitting where I want it, and there'll be that extra fold there. Perfect. Cut this seam allowance off and do a zigzag stitch on there. So I've got this gap here, which you can see is much larger than the flat section where we're adding it onto, and that is the point. So I'm going to create a fold of the pleat. Just make sure it is facing the right angle, matching whatever's next to it. Luckily, this is the turning point where it changes, so I can just pick one. So I'm just gonna go where it naturally wanted to fold. I'll do one last pin in place. I'm not gonna bother ironing it. I can iron it once it's joined. Wow, it all worked out. Now we are finally where we intended to be for the final step. If I hold it all up now, she's a bit floppy. We've got an entire pleated panel that is joined onto the bottom of the top panel. It's all good sides facing. The length entirely matches. I'm gonna start at one end and sew it entirely down. I just gotta keep in mind that the first and last one isn't pre-sewn in place, as well as that back center one. I'm actually gonna check the bobbin and see if I have enough thread, because that is generally the one thing that would happen right now, running out and pushing me over the edge to have a mental breakdown. I'll probably do this one at about 1 centimeter or roughly half an inch. Now we just keep it flat and go all the way to the other side. This is where the final pleat not being pinned in place will help. Sometimes the fabric alignment just shifts over time, and I've got about half a centimeter or a quarter of an inch there. So what I'm gonna do is create a bigger fold just by the tiniest amount, align this edge, and fill in the gap from there. There we go, and then that's nice and aligned, because that to me is more of a priority than that being evenly folded, personally. Are you ready for the final reveal together? I haven't even unfolded it yet. Oh my God! Yes, It's so cute. I need to put it on immediately. And then now I need to do this all again for the yellow dress. I'll get started on the pleats off screen, all the same steps of cutting it to this point, halving the bottom length, la-di-da, the calculations that almost melted my brain. Maybe I can better align it on the first go for this one. I literally have something pinned exactly like this, and now I own my own and I've made it and it's thrift flipped. One little thing I guess I need to figure out is holding that down. So whether I add like an internal button or sew it or whatever, I will figure that out. But I'm stoked with how this is. It is now the next day. We've got another cute DIY outfit on. And since then I have also chopped the bottom of this off, done the double lengthening of the bottom section and then pleated it on. I do need to iron it, which I might save because it needs a little bit of a wash and then I can iron it afterwards. But the last detail is I did it on the white dress. Let me show you actually. The final little detail that we've decided to add are these tie sections on the back. So for this one I thought I would film it. I've just used offcuts from the existing garment as I wanted to match the color, and this one is quite a hard one to match, whereas the other one I had some white material that match the texture of the other dress, so I could use that. For this one I'm limited to the size of what I have available, roughly 3 inches wide or 8 centimeters wide by 52 centimeters long or 20 inches long. It'll end up being a little small bow, but you can base off this if you want yours to be longer, wider. If I had the choice I'd probably go 25 inches or roughly 65 centimeters. It'll just create a better bow effect, but then again a little one won't look that bad. I'm going to fold it so the good sides are facing, start from the folded edge, sew down one short edge and down the entire length of the long edge, and then leave the other short edge open. And then just grab something long and thin like a paintbrush, make sure it's nice and clean, pop it against the closed end and begin to shimmy it over the top. The thicker this strap is, the easier this process should be, whereas the thinner they get, this can definitely get a bit more trickier because there's less space to be able to push all this material through. Once you got the tip hanging out, then just pull it like so. I'm gonna give that a nice little iron so it's flat, and then we can add it on. I'm gonna have these straps coming out around the waist area so that they tie up around the back. So for me, I figured that's just under this dart area. To do this, I'm going to lay the strap so it's majority laying on the front, and then I've got it overhanging on the side seam by about 1 centimeter or just under ½ an inch, and I will sew across the strap and in line with that side seam. If you don't have an indicator like this dart line on your garment, I would definitely recommend measuring up from the bottom an equal distance and marking it so that way it's matching on each side. Sitting majority on front, overhanging, and then sewing in line with the seam. And also we're placing the raw edge down and leaving the good end on the other side. It might be handy to trim off any excess if there is quite a bit there. Trim off all the thread and then flip this strap over so it's now facing backwards. And we'll do one line up, across, down, and back across, creating a little rectangle across there. Okay, the very final step before I can try it on and show you how it all looks and how it's come together, and then we can wear it down to the Australian Open, is I'm gonna button this back up so it's all sitting nice and aligned, and then I'm going to overlap this front pleated section where it would naturally want to sit, which is a little bit overlapped because of the buttons. And then I'm going to sew a line as close as I can to the edge of that top layer all the way down to the bottom. That will just stop it from flapping around because at the moment there's no button, there's no nothing. I could add those little, I forget what they call, but they're like those little silver claspy mini buttons that would be concealed under there. That just involves a bit of hand stitching, which I feel like I'm not in the mood at the moment. I can always go back and unpick this and then add that in later. That would probably be the most ideal option. So I'll line that up, make sure it's all sitting where it wants to sit, and then I'll sew down there. The lighting on the machine sometimes makes it super extreme and hard to actually see what I'm doing, but you can see there's the original hemline there, and then on the very edge here I've got another sewing line, and that is the one that holds it closed together. Time to try it on. This colour is so dreamy. I think this one might be my favourite. We might have to have a battle of who's gonna wear what. This one is a little bit minier, so if I did wear it, I'd probably wear like a little skirt. I've got little shorts under it at the moment, so you can't really see it. Oh yeah, let me tie up the back for you. So at least that's a fun little option if we want to cinch it in a bit more at the waist. Then it adds that little cute effect on the back. Like I mentioned, this is a bit shorter than I probably would have wanted it to be, but we're working with what we had. So it's got a bit of a mini bow and not much hang for the leftover area. Anyway, if you enjoyed following along, whether you were recreating something similar for yourself or whether you just wanted to come along for the journey, thanks so much for tuning in for these videos. It always means so much to me, and I hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are, and I'll see you in the upcoming videos. Bye.